So welcome to our podcast today, everybody. We're excited to have Ari Mason here. Appreciate you being here today.
It's an honor.
Awesome. I'm so glad. Well, Ari Mason is a seasoned fractional CMO known for transforming the landscape of startups through innovation, branding, and marketing strategies. Ari's passion lies in amplifying the impact of mission-driven companies, ensuring they not only thrive in their markets, but also stay true to their core values. With a unique blend of disrupting branding, dynamic storytelling, and content that connects, she turns businesses into magnets for success and loyalty. As a mentor, mental health advocate, and a voice for women in the workplace, Ari is not just a marketing guru, but a catalyst for positive change in both business and community. And I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I can't wait to dig in.
So I just pumped you up there in that little paragraph
that
there.
Made me sound really good. Thank
you
you
are
for that.
really good. I love it. So talk to us about becoming like a fractional CMO, right? It's fractional work, more or less, is relatively new. I mean, it's in terms of kind of what it's been and what it's kind of becoming, it's relatively new. Consultants have necessarily more or less always been around, but at least calling yourself like a true like fractional C-suite level person, that's relatively new. So talk to me about your journey to get where you are.
Yeah, I had never even really thought about it. And there's always been this call toward entrepreneurship. I tried in 2021 to start a business, and I wasn't really in a position at that point. I was kind of overwhelmed by the whole thing. I was like, whoa, like I got to keep my books and file the LLC and this, that, and the other thing. And I just didn't have, I was back in New England. So I'm from New England. Yeah. Have been in Utah for about going on 3 years now. And the support of the Utah business community, just the closeness.
It's pretty awesome.
It's incredibly unique. I've never seen anything like it.
Especially coming from the East Coast.
Oh, yeah.
We deal with a lot of people on the East Coast, and it is like, it's night and day. It's night and day.
It's very much a hustle culture.
Yeah.
So that's sort of in my blood.
Yeah.
And it was like starting from scratch every time I was looking for a new opportunity because there was no network.
Yep.
Right?
It's pretty cold. At least for me, it's cold. It seems cold. Yeah.
It's especially living in like Boston and New York, you get different kinds of cold. Yeah. But people just like to keep to themselves, wary of strangers, not interested in really getting to know new people. Totally. They're like, we got our crew. We're good.
Yep. Business as usual.
Exactly. So I didn't have a lot of support in that. And I felt really alone, really overwhelmed. I am an ICF certified coach. And that was really, I've just always been called to make a difference. Really make a positive impact on the world. And I've looked for that in every opportunity, every role that I've ever held. Is maybe it's just this one person who I'm mentoring, who's junior to me, but not even on my team, who I still talk to. 2016 we worked together, and we still are in touch today.
That's amazing.
Sometimes it's just little things I can contribute to the organization. But I was always called to something bigger. And so I had like my first foray into entrepreneurship in 2021, which was sort of my like post-COVID, not crisis, but just reevaluation.
Yeah. And that would have been about the time you came to Utah then? Or is that what brought you to Utah?
That was right before I moved out to Utah.
Okay, right before you moved here. Okay.
So I got the coaching certification. I was just so burned out at the marketing agency where I was working. It was a tough transition to remote work and felt really disconnected. And I said, I want to do something completely different. Got certified and just fell in over my head. I was terrified about the whole thing. And there were some things about the coaching space that just weren't really resonating for me. Coaching done well is really, really powerful.
Yes,
and
100%.
There is just a saturation of coaches who anybody can call themselves a coach, right?
Yep. Yeah, pretty much.
Because it's not regulated.
And there's a little bit of this I don't want to say the word scam, but some people, that's a little bit of a connotation in it.
There's a little bit of
yeah.
like pyramid scheme too,
Yes,
because you end
for
up
sure.
with a lot of coaches coaching coaches.
Yes.
And I was like, where are the people getting help?
Yeah, totally.
How are they getting help? If the only way to scale your business is to become a business coach, and you're not coaching businesses, you're coaching
People.
coaches.
Yeah.
So I recognized for a number of reasons that wasn't going to be it for me. And then was really missing the camaraderie of a team. So I just started firing off applications. And the door that opened was the opportunity to come out here to Salt Lake and lead the marketing department I'm a rock climber, for the Front Climbing Club. And so...
Which is awesome. I've been in there many times.
Yeah, and it was just such a cool way to kind of bring my passion into my work life.
Totally.
And sort of instill more meaning into what I was doing professionally. They needed me yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, this is crazy. The idea of in 3 weeks packing up and moving across the country, how feasible is this?
Had you ever been to Utah prior?
No.
Oh,
I
look
hadn't.
at you. You were I need an adventure, basically.
My sister lives in Phoenix.
Okay.
And,
and
so she was the
closest
first
you've been.
one to migrate.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to get out west because
sure.
this is, Utah turns out to be the best place in the country, continental U.S. for rock climbing.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking like Colorado, though, right?
Yeah.
And so they said, well, just let us fly you out. Come meet us, see Salt Lake. Worst case scenario, you get a free trip to Salt Lake on us. And I was like, okay, can't say no to that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Walked out, accepted the job. And then a few weeks later, my life was in a U-Haul and we were moving across the country.
Good for you.
And so that's how it started. And I have had a lot of movement in my career because to move up, you often need to move on.
Yep.
And there's a whole conversation we can get into around
Yeah.
that. And part of what has driven me to go out on my own. And while I was working at the front, I got recruited by a seed round startup that was pre-launch looking for someone to come in and lead marketing. And I will always be the one to take the risk.
Yeah, totally.
So I couldn't say no. And it was just an incredible experience to build something from the ground up. And a lot of lessons learned along the way. I'd worked for companies of various sizes, big, small. I was working for Shark Ninja, which makes the Shark vacuum and the Ninja blender, right? So they're like enterprise level. I worked for NBC.
Yeah.
Enterprise level. I worked for a small marketing agency. This was pre-launch startup.
Yeah, which is
So
a
I
whole new
learned
ballgame.
so much about the startup landscape.
Totally.
And unfortunately, it did go the way of 90% of startups.
Yeah.
And, we can unpack that, but we don't need to.
Yeah.
It gave me a front row seat to what works and what doesn't work and why. And then I moved on to my next role working with Kizik.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Which was so fun.
Yeah, we had Blake Brown on just a little bit. I'm going to release that episode next week. But yeah, Blake's the best.
Yeah,
it was
he
so
is
fun.
such
He's
a good guy.
Yeah.
Really, really good people there.
Yeah.
And it was sort of an opportunistic role where it was like, okay, what's the need? How do we kind of bring all those things together and
Totally.
create something? And what I ended up leaning into is PR, which was natural from my background in journalism, and community impact.
Cool.
So
Did you bump elbows with Levi Lindsay a little bit? I don't know if you crossed paths while you were there.
Levi and I are ships passing in the night.
That's
funny. We've been in the same place at the same time like twice, I think.
Oh, serious?
And had one moment where it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. We
need to take a picture to prove
For
this
sure.
happened. And then I turn around and he's gone.
He's gone. Yeah,
right?
That's
Like
Levi.
that's just the way that it goes.
And speaking of that, so we always joke with Levi. He was our CMO for a day, and because he quite literally was, and
Levi is
right
just
before
such an
he got poached by
incredible-
Kizik, so he had multiple offers after VidArmy.
Of course he
and
did.
he came to work for us. He accepted our offer, coming on as a CMO. This was like 2021. And it was at the same time he had another offer from Kizik and one other from another company. And after about 2 days, the Kizik like upped their offer, and we were like, dude, take it.
Yeah.
Like, you need to do what's best for your family. I know this sucks for us, but it's all right. And like, go take care of your family and go be with Kizik. But we've always joked with him ever since that he was our CMO for a day. So he's a good guy. We like Levi.
Well, hopefully I get to have a more extensive interaction with him at some point. Levi, if you're watching this.
Yeah. Oh, he'll come back on. He was on one of our first guests, and he'll definitely be back on in the new studio for sure.
Okay, well, invite me and
'Kay,
I'll just
we'll just duel it.
stand in the hallway while you're recording.
Sounds
And
great.
accost him.
Yes,
afterward.
that sounds great. Sounds great.
So, leaning into community impact at Kizik, starting the Kizik Cares program, that was the most meaningful thing that I felt I've done in my professional career at a full-time, W-2
full-time role.
role. And it just, like, that's my passion is connection.
Totally.
And people, and just doing something that means something, leaving the world better than I found it. And I had a front row seat to that because we'd host these events for, the one that I think no one will ever forget, which I know was really near and dear to Monty, the CEO's heart, was Running is a Right, which provides recreational prosthetics for kids who have experienced limb loss or limb difference.
Yep.
And maybe have never run on a running blade before. And so we sponsored the event, made goodie bags for them.
For sure.
And got to watch them go out and just be kids.
Yeah, totally.
And the parents were in tears, and they all...
It's so emotional, for sure.
And that was
moving.
the point where I really felt validated in my desire to make a real difference.
Yeah.
So then I get a message from, it's just the way that everything sort of organically unfolds has been so amazing.
Yeah.
I get a message from the recruiter at one of the fractional CMO firms, Achieve CMO, saying, hey, have you ever thought about going fractional?
Yep.
And I was like, no. I really don't know much about it, but let's
Sounds
talk.
interesting. Yeah.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
And to your point, fractional work has been around for a while, and within the past year or so has become
A lot more mainstream.
something that people know about.
Yeah.
Prior to, it was interim CMO or
Yeah.
what have you.
Yeah.
And so there are a couple firms that I think a couple that are dedicated specifically to CMOs in Utah. Another one that incorporates CFOs, and there are a lot of independent CXOs.
Yeah.
Fill in the
Fill in
blank.
the blank. Yeah.
And so it really is a budding sort of industry, if you will. And when we had the conversation, it just lit me up because I've done the agency thing.
Yeah, you have a very
Very diverse
broad
background.
and diverse background for sure, which makes, I think, a perfect option, especially for somebody in fractional work.
Exactly.
You've worked at the agency, you've done the hustle life, you've worked at
Yes.
the startup, you've worked for mission-driven companies, and you've worked in CPG. I mean, all the things.
Yeah. And there's also, sort of the rise of the generalist
Yeah.
is happening simultaneously,
Totally.
where there's been such a focus on, especially in the marketing space, hiring specialists, and in-house teams do need that.
Yeah.
And there is a kind of superpower that a generalist has where you know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
And that has been what's made me successful and really effective in this role is I know a lot about a lot of different things
Yeah.
and can go in and like roll up my sleeves,
Yep.
expertise in certain areas. And I'm very transparent about the ones where I'm not as comfortable. And
I'm dangerous.
and I know who I need to bring in
Yeah.
to support me in
Yeah.
those. And so that's how it started. And I really loved the opportunity to sort of have that mutual selection process where the client, fractional fit has to be right.
Totally.
Where it's different in an agency capacity.
Yes, very much so.
You just get the client you get.
Yep.
Which is why I felt prepared for this, because I was like, I'm used to working with all different kinds of personality types.
Yeah.
And ultimately, as both a fractional and an agency, you're in service of the client.
Yep.
And so there's a line there where you're recommending strategy and kind of proving out why this is the direction that you advise that, we take together. And if there's pushback and it's like, nope, we got to do this, then it's like, okay, I'm here to help you. So this is yours.
Totally.
And I will support you in doing this.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was on one hand prepared for it, and on the other hand, the moving on to move up thing that I was mentioning earlier, if you go on my LinkedIn and you look at it probably won't be in the number 2 spot because I'm doing a LinkedIn overhaul for long. But right now it's in the number 2 spot. It is a post where I just got very real about why my tenure has been limited in many of these organizations.
Yeah.
And there are a number of reasons for that. And it's all been, I got to do what's right for me.
For sure. Yeah.
And if there's a lack of alignment, or if it's just not quite working out for whatever reason, or, it's not a culture fit.
Yeah.
Culture is really, really, really important to me.
Yeah.
Like non-negotiable.
Yeah, for sure.
If it's not
As
a
is for a
culture
lot of
fit,
people. Yeah.
then it's just not. It's
Not gonna work out.
It's not a mutually beneficial
Yeah.
arrangement. And so combine all those things with the opportunity to kind of choose my own adventure and make it what I wanted. I had a really hard time niching down at first because I was worried about
I feel
having enough of an appeal.
As a mutual generalist myself, I feel that it's hard. It's very hard.
And you don't,
especially with who you serve. Yeah.
yeah, and it's so hard to take your own advice too,
Yeah.
because I can guide a client through this stuff
Yeah.
in my sleep. And practicing what you preach when you're building your own brand and your own business can be so challenging because you get in your head, you're overthinking,
Totally.
right? And so
It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, to be honest. Like, this is always, at least content creation, has always been something I've wanted to do. I've always preached it. I did it hardcore as a photographer for many, 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 many years. And, grew a pretty decent social following on my own and did all these things, and then got into stuff that was not organic social and just kind of just left it to go. And I seriously regret that so much. And I'm like, I wish I would have continued to do it. And that's why I'm like, now we're getting into the podcast thing. We're getting into content creation. We're doing these things that are challenging and fun,
Yeah. It's got to be, you have to love, life is not sunshine and rainbows all the time.
Yep.
Even when you're in your purpose,
Totally.
right? In your zone of genius, doing what you love. There's going to be ups and downs, especially in entrepreneurship, which I have experienced firsthand.
Yeah.
And continue to.
Daily.
There are good days, there are bad days.
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
The difference between being successful and not is the choice to keep going.
1,000%. If you don't give up, whereas, most people do that quit or fail. And even if you do fail, you just keep going because eventually you're going to be the last one around.
Well,
and
failure,
the last one stating.
Failure, there's no shame in failure.
Yeah.
The startup that I worked at, one of the values was fail fast and fail often.
Yep.
And I loved that because that's how you learn.
For sure. Yeah, there's no better
every
learning
experience I've had has just built upon all of the other experiences, and that's what's gotten me to where I am today and made me qualified to do this work.
Yeah.
So I had that opportunity with Achieve, and I said, let's just take it.
Yeah.
Let's go for it and see what this is like.
Yeah.
And I ended up really loving it, and then started having just all of these people coming out of the woodwork, reaching out to me saying, hey, can I work with you? Can I work with you? And it was kind of wild. In 2 months, I surpassed my W-2 income.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And now I've got my own agency partners and an apprentice and VAs and, needing to hire help. I was so not prepared for that so early on. And if anybody,
it's a good problem.
If anyone is waiting on a pitch deck from me, I promise it's coming. I just didn't realize that I was going to need it so soon because I didn't think I was going to scale so soon. So I was taking my time on my own assets, prioritizing client work, and then this influx of interest comes. And of course, it makes total sense. Like, you got to show your work.
Yeah, for sure.
But what's interesting is that, connection, people, authenticity, that's who I am. The person who is speaking right now, looking at all of these cameras, is the person that you get in every single space, every conversation, every area of my life. And it's such a shift from the podcast recording I did about a year ago.
Yeah.
Where I got a lot. It was just, here's what I need to say.
Yeah.
I declare this.
Yeah.
But it got vulnerable and it got deep, and then I got way in my head about it.
Yeah.
And I overanalyzed, and I was like, we need to hold this. And then I went to the leadership team, and I played the audio for them, and I said, is this okay?
Is this all right?
And now I'm shameless. You can ask me anything, and I will answer honestly.
Yeah.
Because, what's the point? We all need to take off the mask.
Yeah, for sure.
And that has been the draw.
That's where the connection happens.
Exactly.
Anyways. Yeah.
Exactly. When I just decided that I was going to stop trying to control everything, which has been a big lesson for me, and just show up as who I am, walk through every open door, say yes to every opportunity to connect with somebody new, and see where the path took me.
Good things happen.
Things just took off, and just it's been such a fun ride because I never know what's around the corner.
Well, that's what makes it fun. For sure.
And it's exciting.
Yeah.
And so there's so much of a cyclical nature to what I'm doing now. I look back at 2021 and recognize that I needed to have that experience. This is the culmination of that. And I just had a former colleague from NBC, back when I was working out of New York as a journalist, remind me that I had first talked about the idea of entrepreneurship in 2016.
Yeah.
Which I don't even remember. But apparently it's just been calling to me.
Yeah.
And now I can hold it because I've had the experiences I needed to have, and I've got the community and the structure, and I have learned and grown and done the work on myself that I needed to do in order to be able to really make this happen.
Oh,
so
I love that.
That's how I ended up
being a fractional
being
CMO.
a fractional CMO.
Well, it's a great journey too. Like I think like something I heard recently, I don't remember where I heard it, but it's like the hero story also has a monster. You know, like more or
Interesting.
less like
Hero's journey.
well, and hero's journey in general
This is another plug for having Matt Brown on. Matt, you need to come onto this podcast.
But the hero's journey in general, like I love Story Brand by Donald Miller. I don't know if you've read that book, but yeah, I mean, but there always has to be an antithesis, and where you are now is only due to everything that you've gone through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And the monsters that you've battled, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's personally or professionally, you know, to
Both.
get where you are today.
Both.
Yeah.
Both. And
is there one that sticks out? Like
one
more
monster?
particular? Maybe a monster or a story that like you felt like has been a catalyst to get you really where you are today. And maybe it was that the one you spoke about earlier with the startup back east. But
no, the startup was
the startup
here.
was here? Oh, I was thinking it
Yeah.
was back east.
Yeah.
But okay.
I mean, really, there have been a series of crystallizing moments for me. And the first was during the Silicon Slope Summit.
The most recent one?
The most recent one in September.
Yeah.
So this is when I was already on the roster with Achieve, and we were working to match me because they do this really careful matchmaking process to make sure the skill sets align with the client needs, which is brilliant.
Yep.
And so we were just waiting for the right client to come along for me. And I was kind of getting in my head, and I was staying open to everything. And so day one, I go, and it was, at that point, I was terrified to go because I just didn't really know who I was supposed to be in the world in that moment.
Yeah.
And how to present myself. And it was a fantastic experience. I had a blast.
It was a great summit.
And
overall.
That first day, I introduced myself. Yeah, you know, I'm like kind of doing this, but I'm open to whatever. I didn't have
kind of a
an
strategy going in there. Yeah.
authoritative, like declare. And I won't say elevator pitch because an elevator pitch is scripted.
Yeah, it's not as authentic for sure.
If it's not authentic, I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And this is all just something that has become more and more essential to me as I've gone through this journey. And so I was meeting a lot of people and really not presenting myself in a way I felt good about. And the end of the night, I mentioned the fractional work to somebody. And they said, well, I don't see that on your LinkedIn profile. And I was like, oh, I'm not owning it.
Yeah.
I'm not declaring who I am. I've just allowed this ambivalence to kind of spiral and spin around in my head. And in that moment, I went and immediately put fractional CMO on my LinkedIn
That's
profile.
when I saw you starting to pop off on LinkedIn the last couple of months, huh? Mm-hmm. Yep.
And day two, I show up in a suit. I introduce myself as a fractional CMO. I've got a digital business card set up.
Yeah.
And the entire energy shifted because my energy shifted. So the way people responded to me changed. And the way, that was just such an empowering moment where I said, you know what? I get to be like, I'm tired of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. There's a reason that I've been in these roles. I've learned so much. I've met incredible people. I've taken a lot away from that. And just something has not been quite aligned in every single one, and not, you know, good, bad, or otherwise, but just not quite the right thing. And this is sort of the cycle that's repeated for me. And so I analyzed that and said, why is this pattern playing out?
Yeah.
And recognized that I was going back to the last podcast recording and doubting
your abilities.
not giving myself permission to be authentic.
Yeah, totally.
asking for other people's permission to be authentic,
Yeah.
that's where I was. And so as soon as I started saying, no more,
Yeah.
like, I am just going to release control. I'm going to stop trying to over-engineer my life because here's what's happened. A lot of good has come out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's been a lot of turbulence and a lot of change. And
you had the self-awareness in order to do that, as you know.
I've done a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, the mental health thing, something I'm really passionate about. I've struggled with mental health since I was 15. I was diagnosed with chronic anxiety. 17, depression. I am
Which comes to the control piece for sure.
Yeah.
Very similar.
I mean, I've had three moments of suicidal ideation, and one when I was 17 landed me inpatient. Like, I have walked
you've walked
through
a lot,
the fire.
for sure. Yeah.
And there's this interesting kind of theory around. I also was recently diagnosed with ADHD, which is such a relief.
Yeah, especially as like an adult, you're like,
Well,
that makes sense. My
whole
whole
generation
entire
of
life.
women who are being diagnosed as adults, of millennial women with high functioning autism and ADHD, because practitioners have just looked for traditional symptoms as they present, from the ADHD perspective at least, as they present in boys. And it looks very different in women. And guess what? Direct correlation between depression, anxiety, neurodivergence.
Yep.
And just seeing, getting back to Levi, We Are Mind, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I went to lunch with the We Are Mind team and, allies, just other people who are really sharing the story and normalizing the reality of mental health.
100%.
And of course, Levi wasn't there.
Yeah.
Couldn't make it. He was invited, but he couldn't make it.
He's off on something else. But I mean, I spoke at length with Corey Stevens too, who I've been a huge fan of for many, many, many years.
Yeah, I just commented on one of his posts yesterday about it.
Yeah, like you'll find the conversation interesting when we publish it in like 2 weeks. But he's just a very interesting guy, and I think he himself doesn't even understand or realize the impact he's having. I think at the very core of it, and I think like I was walking him through it all, and we both got emotional in the episode, but like he's making a huge impact, whether or not whether or not he recognizes it or not,
And everybody who comes out and gets vulnerable and shares those stories.
Yeah. It's helping literally save lives.
There's so much power in that. And so going back to this LinkedIn post, I was explaining, and sure, we'll get a little controversial here.
Okay.
But I was explaining there is, coming from New England.
Yep.
Gender equality, still something that isn't really quite there anywhere in this country. And just the culture and the religious influence here that's so embedded and forms the foundation of who we are as a community. Was, I moved out here and everyone was like, get ready for culture shock.
Get ready for the Mormons.
And I get here and I'm like, what culture shock are you talking about? But it has shown up in subtle ways.
For sure.
And a lot of it is just unconscious bias.
Yep.
Not malicious.
It's not overt or anything. Yeah. So
I'm sure there are malicious people out there. And I've had unfortunate, situations.
And that's in literally anything.
Doesn't have anything to do with the culture around women in the workplace as it pertains to just cultural norms, societal norms.
Yeah.
It's just bad people
or
misguided or this. I mean, actually, this individual in particular has struggled with mental health, untreated, and like really hurt me.
Yeah.
And I can now look back because there's been enough time and distance and recognize he just is hurting.
Yeah. Yep.
It doesn't
For sure.
justify.
No.
You're never
100%.
You are never justified in hurting another human being because you are hurting.
Yeah.
And I can have a little bit of compassion. Still really mad about it.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I can have a little bit of compassion because I can relate to what that feels like.
Totally.
So just talking about these authentic experiences and sharing these stories, and I kind of unpacked it in that post and said, because I'd had a male colleague tell me, a male colleague who I had a great relationship with, great working relationship with, but tell me in a group Zoom meeting at work that if he had seen my resume and been responsible for hiring me, it would have been an automatic no. And this is someone who has written me a glowing review and said only the best things. And we had a great experience working together. So
that's difficult.
So I didn't say anything in the moment because I didn't really put it all together. But reflecting on that as I was going through this process of self-reflection and sort of leaning into my authenticity and deciding, it is a conscious decision to just show up as who I am. This was another crystallizing event, like another catalytic moment. I wrote this LinkedIn post, and the power, the superpower, and it was really interesting. I've always thought my superpower was language, speech, communication,
especially coming from
writing.
Journalism.
Yes. And that was reframed for me the other day, where the power is my energy, my authenticity, and this is just the vehicle that it comes out through.
Yeah.
And I really liked that framing of it. So I just dumped. And I said, okay, well, here's the background. Here, teed up, conversation happened, and I've been thinking about it, and let me just shed a little bit of light onto why this resume looks the way that it does. And I gave some high-level examples of things that I've experienced multiple times in multiple places that have led me
to change.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were unfortunately specific to being a woman in leadership, being told that my voice mattered, being told I would have a seat at the table, being told that I was going to own my space, that my perspective was valuable, and then being ignored, not able to get a word in edgewise, promised promotions that never came. There's also this crazy thing that happens everywhere, but especially here, where so many women have experienced this kind of thing that there's a female power struggle that tends to happen as well, because it feels like there's not enough space for women. And if we're all vying for the same position, then we got to climb on top of each other in order to get it.
Yeah. Which is not the case. But.
Which is not the case, and which is why I'm doing something about that.
Yeah.
And so it started with that post. And that was really what blew me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And people tell me all the time, I don't have a big following, but I have a very engaged following.
Yeah.
They'll tell me all the time, I see you all over LinkedIn. You are, even my mom, who never goes on LinkedIn, started going on LinkedIn to check my posts.
Well,
She's
LinkedIn's about to blow up because Ari's mom has joined the table.
I mean, my dog has 25,000 followers on Instagram, and I don't even post on that account.
I
have 2,500 on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is what's
just popping off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. LinkedIn in general has been a huge catalyst for many people, especially the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
So.
And there's this incredible synchronicity too with the direction that branding and marketing are moving. And we'll get back to the women's stuff in a minute.
Yeah, I want to keep going on it for sure.
I want to go there, but just in the spirit of authenticity and talking about LinkedIn, I hate all the marketing jargon. I can't stand it. I will. The two that are
especially coming from the agency world, like I totally get you.
There's a LinkedIn post in the making on this. Look out for it.
Okay,
but
I'll give my 2 cents.
The two that I cannot stand that have been newly coined for 2024 are B2B influencer.
Yep.
And personality-led marketing.
I haven't actually heard that one, but I mean, I hear the phrase all the time. Last 2 years, like dark social. I don't know if you've heard of dark social.
Like the dark funnel.
Yeah, dark funnel, dark social stuff.
That's,
which is very real, and I actually think it's a
even
great
more
term,
real.
But,
it's even more real now, and I actually have. So, fun fact, not related to anything. B2B buyers are 70% of the way through their buyer's journey. This is recent data.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
70% of the way through the buyer's journey before they're even a blip on your radar. You don't know they exist.
Yep.
So they're pinging around from touch point to touch point.
Yeah.
You can't, there's no attribution.
Yep.
You can't track it.
Nope.
And they are almost 3/4 of the way through their decision-making process before you know they exist. So all of your top of funnel content that you're putting out, the way that you're representing yourself, your content marketing, your brand marketing, your personality-led marketing.
Your B2B influencers.
Oh, yes, but really, they're taking all of that information. They know what they want. Their requirements from the beginning to the end of the path to purchase tend not to change very much. And they're making decisions about you based on what they see before they've ever had a conversation with anybody on your team or had direct outreach or like even necessarily signed up for your newsletter. Yeah. Right? 83% of those buyers are making direct outreach, and the first point of contact, the buyer is initiating 83% of the time.
Yeah, which is crazy. And they're just passing them off to like a SDR who's only trying to, just basically
they don't want to talk to the SDR. They want to talk to the VP of sales.
Exactly.
Which makes it really hard for SDRs.
Yeah.
And that's a separate conversation too, is around what's happening in the biz dev SDR space.
Yeah, it's gonna look very different in the next couple of years.
Everything's gonna look very different.
Everything's gonna
look very different.
Completely shaken up for sure.
Yep. So anyway, those just prove out that that's your dark funnel. Yep. Right? Yep. And it just proves out that your brand is who you are and that your buyers are making decisions about you, making judgments about you. And B2B, this has been so minimized. It's been product-led marketing forever.
But
and outbound.
And it's literally just because they have been so vanity metric-led by metrics that don't actually mean anything.
Well,
you know what I mean?
And it's so easy to forget too when you're in the B2B space. You're selling to a human.
Yes.
Like I've had conversations with clients, said you work in visual media, you need an Instagram account. They're like, but LinkedIn. I was like, yeah. Yes.
That too.
And you need an Instagram account because guess what?
People
if you're selling, if your target is a VP of Blake Brown.
Yeah.
Right?
Guess what he's doing when he gets home? He's on Instagram.
We follow each other on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So they're humans.
Yes.
And they want the same thing as every other human does right now, which is just less crap, less clutter, less promotion, and just more authenticity, more just getting real. They want the curtain pulled back. They want to see who's behind the business.
Yeah.
What is
they want like authentic founder story, you know?
Yeah, the executive team, the founders, and this is the intersection of culture and brand. And kind of what's carrying me forward into the direction that I'm moving.
Yeah.
You know, I told you at the beginning of the episode that culture is something I've been really passionate about.
Yeah.
And has been a make or break for me everywhere I've been, and also a driver toward working for myself,
For sure.
because
to
I'm not
find-
adherent to anybody else's
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And if the client's not a fit, it's not a fit. And I know that within the first 30 seconds of being on a client intro call or a prospect intro call.
What are your tells or your non-negotiables with your culture fit?
With my culture fit, authenticity.
Yeah.
I want someone who's this is what I'm pouring into my work, I want to work with someone who is values-based, who is passionate, who cares, who is also wanting to be a change maker and do something that matters and is
Totally.
meaningful and just shows up as a real human being and is engaged and wants to know me. The posts that I put out on LinkedIn that have nothing to do with marketing or branding or business are the ones that draw in the most leads.
Yep.
Because it's all about trust. And
Totally.
so the people who come in through those posts, they're already aligned because they're seeing me, they're understanding what I'm about, and they're like, I want to work with that person. And so most conversations I have, it's like, yeah, let's
Pretty
go
positive.
do this.
Yeah.
A couple I have had were just very clearly like
Not a good fit.
when a prospect doesn't know what they want. You know, sometimes they'll just
They're looking for
search
somebody to just tell
fractional.
them what they.
No. They don't.
Or maybe not that. Maybe it's the opposite.
They don't know what they want,
Yeah.
and they are. So, a conversation that I have, 2 conversations I've had. Not sure really what they're looking for, what they want, and they've got somebody on the team who is identifying, okay, we need support here, 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 and here. Well, that's not how I operate. I'm not going in to execute. I'm going in to be your partner and your marketing leader and to develop a strategy and partner with you on implementing that.
Yeah.
And it's very methodical and obviously adjusts based on the needs of each client. And there is a process that has to happen because a lot of these clients either have not had, especially in the B2B space, haven't had marketing support before. They've been sort of founder-led sales
Yep.
or, have
Or
partnered with.
more or less CEOs kind of been the CMO.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
exactly. Or they're shifting in their startup team, can't be their growth team. So, there's a gap to be filled and some redefining of brand and marketing strategy to be worked out. And regardless of which scenario you're in, you got to build that. You can't build a house without a foundation,
Yeah.
right? And so you have to do that foundational work in order to build a strategy that can scale
Yeah,
and
totally.
be successful and actually drive results.
Yes,
And so-
Scott Porter talks about the heart. He's like, you got the brand and the values and everything are the heart of the
That's why
business
brand
body.
and culture are the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's literally at the foundation of everything.
Yes.
Literally everything.
And
Not only
this
the
is-
product, but everything anyone ever touches.
Yes.
It comes from here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Scott, we're going to need to talk about this because I feel you, man.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I preach. And this is also where I think startups tend to, there's a lot of education that needs to happen still.
Yeah.
And where startups may often be sort of have this missing link because brand and culture are the same. Here's why. Brand is often perceived as something marketing develops as a way of speaking to the target audience, getting buy-in figuring out how to reach them where they at, speak to where they're at, where they at.
You're
That's
you're
not
from
a-
New England.
That's not a New England thing, but we'll roll with it. And, build loyalty. Get them to buy. It's all about conversion. It's nurturing, it's conversion, and, retention through things like email campaigns and upsells and cross-sells. Can you tell I have a background in D2C?
Yeah, exactly.
And you put brand in a box, you create a fragmented customer journey or client journey. Your sales, if you're a B2B, if your sales team isn't bought in on your brand.
Yeah, good luck trying to scale that. Yeah.
What I see all the time is customer support, customer service, account executives, like whoever is going to deal with the post-purchase experience that isn't marketing.
Yeah.
That's where the breakage points happen.
Yeah.
Because brand is seen as a thing that marketing creates and uses to bring people in, rather than
It's the whole
your
thing.
identity as an organization.
Yeah.
And
then the agents of that organization more or less communicating that process from start to finish.
it has to be seamless.
Yeah.
It has to be seamless. And the only way to do that is for the organization to embody it.
Yes.
And for the organization to embody it, it has to be the lifeblood of your organization, which is culture.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with the entrepreneurial operating system, which I love, the first component, the first step when you're building is to identify, like, who are you? What are your drivers? What are you passionate about? What are your
Simon
missions?
Sinek's
What are your
why?
So you look at the questions you ask when you're building a brand, the questions you ask when you're building out your cultural values. Guess what? They're not all that different, if at all.
Yeah.
And
they
so
probably should be the same.
and that's what I am working on.
Yeah.
Is synthesizing those because they are the same.
Yeah.
And organizational culture, the brand is just the way that it is perceived externally, but the culture is how it comes alive internally.
Totally.
So those terms are interchangeable.
Yeah.
And
then customers that interact with you are going to experience that too. Scott, I keep bringing back Scott because I just talked to him like an hour ago. But Scott Porter from San Diablo, he shared a story on the episode about Trader Joe's. And the culture that Trader Joe's has built internally is so good that their own checkers, that check you out when you're, checking your groceries, basically. They'll ask you how your day is. And he told a story about how, like, he had talked about his, I think it was his dad who had passed away just recently, and he was asked about how his day was going, and he was like,
he was honest.
"It's okay," and he was honest about it. He's like, "It's going all right." My dad passed away, and the checker, said, "I'm so sorry," and just kind of kept going on things too, but said he was so sorry, and then as Scott is getting stuff into his car, the checker comes running out with some flowers. And immediately gives it to Scott and just says, "Hey, I didn't share it too, but I lost my own parent more or less just recently too, and here's some flowers." But then that was just one experience, and then he shared 3 others from other Trader Joe's, either people that have had similar experiences at Trader Joe's, and then he dived into the culture there, and it's it's very palpable. Right?
And it's consistent everywhere.
Yes. No, it's not just the Trader Joe's in Salt Lake. It's the Trader Joe's
I've
everywhere.
lived in 5 states. It is every Trader Joe's I've ever been to the point where when I decided not to launch my own business in 2021 and was kind of looking for, okay, what's next? I was very seriously considering taking a part-time job at Trader Joe's because of the culture.
Yeah, the culture is amazing. And I don't, there's not one near here, but every time I've gone, I've had an amazing experience, and there's like people who go out of their way to shop at Trader Joe's, passing plenty of other grocery stores, on the way to have the kind of experience that Trader Joe's gives, plus pay a premium price for their products.
And what is amazing about it is how they've been able to systematize that.
Yeah.
So that it is pervasive in every single store.
Yeah, I've had the same experience in California as I've had here.
And
I've
that's exactly what culture and brand can do when they work. Because how many advertisements do you see for Trader Joe's? How many paid ads?
0. None.
How many paid ads does Trader Joe's need?
None. It's word of mouth. And they understand
the power of brand.
Which will always be
your strongest channel.
Yes.
By the way.
Yeah, 100%. If you put that time and work and effort into it, it's because they don't need it. They don't need it.
And word of mouth is just something that's, yes, you can incentivize it and you can, ask for it and request it. And it's also something that is just going to happen as
you create the perfect experience.
Create this culture that just is magnetic and an experience that really, not only delivers from a professional perspective, but an experience from just on a human to human level.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
And so that's what I'm looking for, to circle back.
Yeah.
To your original question, when I'm vetting out clients, is are they going to connect with me on a human level? Do they know what they want? Are they looking for strategic guidance and wanting a partner who's going to support them in that? Or do they think that they've got it all figured out and just want someone to come in and execute?
Yeah.
In which case, there are plenty of freelancers who are specialists who are great at doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what they do and that's what they want to do because they want to come in and write email copy.
Yeah.
That is a perfect opportunity for a freelancer.
Yep.
Right? And that's the great thing about having so much outsourced marketing and so many different kinds of outsourced marketers available in 2024.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing Fortune 500 companies cut their CMO roles.
Oh, yeah. Which is crazy.
Some are giving them to the COO, which raises all kinds of red flags.
Yeah.
Because, yes, there's also a general misunderstanding of what the COO actually does.
Yeah, and that's different. Well, and that's so interesting because I've been reading Second in Command because I'm the COO at Scroll. So Second in Command is a book by
yes, and that's what COO is, Second in Command.
But he breaks down more or less the 7 different types of COOs. And it's really interesting because I've seen myself hit, all those things. I'm very much a generalist and I have a lot of expertise in a lot of different, things I know that I'm very good at. But a COO serves a very distinct purpose and it's different at every organization. So.
And it's often misunderstood.
Yeah. For sure. No, definitely.
Yeah.
I do want to touch. We're probably approaching the end of the episode, but I want to go back to women in business because I think it's very important. It's something that you're also very passionate about and talk about, a lot on LinkedIn. So I think in Utah it's a little bit interesting here because of our kind of our culture and our economy, and there's a lot more or less stay-at-home mothers here than I think in other states.
Yeah.
But talk to me about women in tech here and maybe the compare and contrast what you've experienced, back east versus here, and maybe kind of your involvement with the boards that you're on and what you guys are trying to do to, empower women here, especially.
Yeah.
I know that's a lot to unpack.
And, I know exactly how to answer this because I could talk about this all day. It's apples and oranges. You really can't compare the experience here to anywhere else because there are just so many variables that are different. So it's not a controlled experiment, right?
Yeah.
It's like a multivariate test.
Yeah.
And things are shifting. The number of, and actually what I can say with certainty is that the conscious men who are leading the charge on mental health and human connection and wanting to be allies and advocates for women. I've seen more of that here than anywhere else. And it's so special.
That's amazing.
And like huge shout out to these men who are just out there doing beautiful things in the world, bringing humanity and connection back into it because it's so needed.
Yeah.
We need you.
Yep.
So thank you. I love you. And keep going. What is challenging as women, and again, part of why I have appreciated working for myself is everything's inbound. I don't do outbound at all.
Yep.
People come to my space because they want to work with me. So I'm not fighting.
Yeah.
To be
You're
heard.
out of that more or less rat race.
Yeah. And when I posted that, women started coming out of the woodwork saying, thank you. I thought it was just me. I thought I was alone. Like, thank you for being brave. I hope I can be as courageous as you are someday. And I was like, you are. You just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
And
share your story, you know?
it's
easier said than done.
Oh,
but yeah.
when I posted that, I put down my phone and I didn't look at LinkedIn all day.
Yeah.
And then saw that I had 21 notifications. It was a lot more than that, but that was the number of connection requests that I had as a result of that post. And it was like hundreds of likes and comments and like shares.
Yeah.
Men who were applauding me, women who were thanking me, and I just cried. I just broke down in tears and said, this was the scariest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And look at the
What's come of it.
impact that it had. And so that lit a fire under me. And as I've just gone through my own journey and I've shown up in my own authenticity, also this, like, by the way, is how I dress every day. I am always wearing a blazer. You will not catch me without a blazer.
I love it.
And that's just what makes me feel empowered.
Yeah, totally.
And so I've had people
I like a good
say,
suit. I like a good suit. Yeah,
I
there's something
actually
about
got
it, for sure.
a man complimented my blazer
Yeah, I
last
like
night.
your
I was like,
blazer.
thank you. And it was just very genuine.
Yeah, just out of nowhere.
Like, yeah, I really like that blazer. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Then he looked at my gloves and he was like, I really like your gloves. I was like, thank you very much. And just we went our separate ways. It was just a really pleasant interaction.
Yeah.
So, but there is this challenge that is still kind of happening, this struggle. And I've met a lot of women in Utah specifically who have had such negative experiences, and sometimes it only takes one.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
Where they feel marginalized or they feel unimportant or they feel like what they're doing doesn't matter. They're pouring their heart and their soul into the work that they're doing, and at the end of the day, it's not making any difference because nobody's listening, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's not the case everywhere. By any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
There are organizations who do it very differently. So I'm not generalizing and saying that is everyone's experience. It is a shared experience where women feel that they are not treated as equals in the workplace, especially as they rise into leadership roles. And so I've gotten just all of this feedback. And as I show up more boldly, more authentically, more myself, you know, I keep getting told to start a podcast, and I just don't have the capacity right now. But I will be guests on all of your podcasts, and I'm stoked about that. They're like asking for a space for support.
Yeah.
So in addition to recently joining the Silicon Slopes Women in Leadership Board, and I'm excited to head up marketing and communications for them. And working with A Bolder Way Forward on the executive leadership team there, because, wow, I did not realize, just the trafficking, the human trafficking that can happen here. and I
in
know
general.
it's not exclusively an area of focus. It is one area of focus, not the exclusive area of focus, but really like girls, women, like let's bring everyone together. So the biggest thing I'm doing is actually creating an unaffiliated community for women called Talking Truth. Alex Mike Poder,
I love it.
I have to thank for that name. It is not my community. It is a community for any woman who is employed or employable at any stage of their journey. And it's not a networking space.
It's just a place to
It's
talk.
a neutral place for women to come together, get real, get vulnerable, be authentic, talk about these things that we feel like we've been carrying alone,
Yeah.
to see and support each other. And one, it's this just safe space, this place of relief where we can come together and just create a forum where, you know, you're not alone. Like,
Yeah, totally.
and whether you're sharing your story or you're just kind of internalizing and sitting in the energy of it, there's that whatever experience you need to have is the experience you're going to get. And I've been working with other, you know, powerhouse women who are advocates and, you know, asking everybody's opinions. And there are a few women in particular who have come forward and said, let me help you with this.
Yeah.
And so it will be the Kiln. Lehigh has really generously offered to sponsor it.
That's awesome.
And I'm having a conversation next week about, like, how do we make this real?
Yeah.
And
what the future's going to be.
Yep. And,
I love that.
And kicking it off. And
I think it's totally needed.
it's needed because we have so many great opportunities for women to learn, to connect, to get to know each other, to network, to grow, and to have permission, to give themselves permission
To share the stories.
to just go deep.
Yeah.
One, that woman against woman thing gets to go away
Yeah.
because we're leveling the playing field.
You're all just there to just chat. There's
Yeah.
no
Yep.
climbing on top of each other or anything.
There's
Yeah.
no climbing. It's a
Yeah.
supportive environment. And I've led multiple women's groups in different capacities before, and I know that this works. You create the framework to the flow,
Yep.
which is what I was explaining to you earlier, where you give it enough structure that it's not overwhelming and like everybody's deer in the headlights of what do we do.
Yeah.
And I'm just creating this as what I told Kizik when I was presenting the final structure for Kizik Cares to the full organization. This is not mine. This is ours.
Yeah.
I just helped bring
I
this
just
to
happened
life.
to help execute this, but this is ours.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so the other component to that is solution finding. What can we do?
Yeah.
What are we empowered to do? How are we empowered to educate, you know, and close this gap? Because like I said, a lot of the bias is unconscious. It's not, there's no malintent
Yeah.
most of the
It's
time.
not overt,
It's
yeah.
just even male advocates who I know are advocates and allies and are just like pumping women up. When I tell them some of the stuff that I've experienced firsthand, it is mind blowing.
Yeah.
And so, and then they start asking questions. They
Mm-hmm.
want to know more. And so there's this opportunity to create safety among women and camaraderie and real connections and real relationships.
For sure.
Not just, hey, I'll see you at the next networking event,
Yeah.
right? To go deep as you want, or
Or not at all. Just
not
be there
at
to
all,
listen.
just be present.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's this opportunity to create moments where we can invite in male allies who want to support us and have a dialogue where the women get to say, here's what we need from you.
Yeah.
Here's what it's been like. Here's what we've experienced. Here's what we need. And the men get to say, well, what can I do? Or tell me more about that. Help me understand. Or, oh, this is what maybe maybe there's just like a disconnect and a miscommunication here, because from what, the way I would
Their
see
own
it,
experience and
this was the intention of that communication that you received. And I totally get how that impacted you, because that makes total sense.
Yeah.
But what about if it wasn't meant that way? And just
Yeah, totally. Just to be able to
not
talk about and discourse
everybody's
all of it.
experience, everybody's voice is equally valid, but just
Totally.
to have a conversation in a safe space where there's trust, there's vulnerability. There are going to be core tenets up on slides at the beginning of every single session that are the values and the commitments that people are making in that room. And it's trust, vulnerability, authenticity, confidentiality, safety, support.
I
right?
love that. Yeah.
And you are bound to those
when
you walk into that room. And if you're not going to do that, then
don't come.
Then don't come.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And so safety. I've said it so many times, but that's what's most important.
Yes, very much so.
And the ability to connect. So the same way that through my work, I am connecting businesses with their audiences in an authentic way, the work that I am doing in the community in multiple avenues is to connect people on an individual and communal level, women to women, women to men, and just kind of debunk some of these, like, there are a lot of strong female crusaders, and it just, there is a real division, and there's divisiveness there, and doesn't have to be.
Cut through that.
Doesn't have to be, and it's not gonna solve all of everything.
Yeah,
we're not gonna.
You can solve what's in the community, though, and make an impact where you stand, or less.
It has this is an opportunity to create more understanding, more proactivity, and more connection, more safety, and more integration.
Yeah, I love that.
And I just want to be the one who I have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
I feel called to do it.
And you should do it.
And the need is there. And so
totally.
all I want to do, like, this is your gift.
Yeah.
I will go first. I will go first.
Yeah.
I will create the safe space by sharing my experience, and I will tell you everything.
Yeah.
I would tell you everything if we had more time and you wanted to go there.
Yeah.
But to just allow, again, it's about permission, and especially women feeling, like they need permission.
Yeah, they need. Yeah.
And this is something that I've seen as well, with younger women feeling like they don't have permission to attend some of these, women-specific networking organizations.
Which is,
and so it's all about perception.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
And it's so just like deeply ingrained, and we have the opportunity to just shift all of that.
Yeah, totally.
And if you can make a difference for however many people end up in that room, that's enough.
100%.
That's enough.
Yeah. And what ways, and maybe this is a good way to end, but what ways can those that are, one, obviously wanting to create the safe spaces for women, especially in the workplace, two, empower women that maybe work in their organization or in leadership? What are ways that, either founders or owners or those that, work with, alongside, for, under, whatever, women, to help and be involved and change? Men, women, either right? Because I think either or, like, in general, like, at least those that listen to our podcast are heavily more on the founder side and a lot more local. But it really does start with culture. So when you identify who you are, who you want to be in this world, forget for a second what it is that you've built, what you're selling, what your product is, what your service is.
forget that. Focus on the human side. What difference, what impact do you want to make? Like, really?
Yeah.
There's a reason you created this. What is that reason? And so build your culture, your values, your mission around the impact that you want to make. What was that inspiration, that seed of an idea that made this into something real? How can you change somebody's life in a way that is big or small, but in some capacity? And so when you bake that into your culture and you think about it from the perspective of humanity, and you identify your mission, your vision, your values, what you stand for, what you're about, and you start to show up that way, that will then inform your hiring plan. And by the way, whether you feel like you need marketing right away or not, you do need a brand strategist up front.
Yeah.
Brand culture consultant to come in, because they're the same.
Yep.
And if there's one thing I want you to walk away from this with, it's that brand and culture are the same. That needs to get defined up front, because so many wrong, and this is why you get
down the wrong path.
COOs who are not actually acting as COOs because the role is misunderstood and the wrong people end up in it. So when you are driven by a mission that you actually embody and that you look to find in the people who join your team, and everybody is living the culture and living the brand, then it is innately a human workplace. So that in and of itself solves the issue.
Yeah.
What happens is that culture ends up being something that gets, defined and maybe exists on paper. I would say 95% of the organizations, and remember, I've got a lot of movement on my resume, so I've been places. Come at me. 95% of the organizations I've seen do not live their culture. It is lip service, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's the opportunity right there. And if you're already down the road, go back to it.
Yeah,
Your
it's
brand,
it's
your
not
culture,
too quite late to change unless you're a Fortune 100.
Well, and this is another area of focus that I'm just going to leave everybody in suspense for a little while, but the culture change initiative for established organizations is something that I'm also diving into.
Yeah.
And not by myself.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so it really does start with just treating people like people.
Yeah,
and if
totally.
there's a situation where, here's the thing, leaders need to lead. And what tends to happen is there's one way to evolve and to grow in an organization, and that's to get promoted into management. And the downfall is that, one, not everybody wants to be a people leader.
Yeah.
Not everybody's cut out to be a people leader. And most people have no training that comes along with that promotion to teach them how to be an effective people leader. So those are the opportunities to just reflect, Do you have the right?
And it starts at the top.
And just start talking about it. Just bring awareness to it. That's the first step.
Yeah.
Just bring awareness to it. Remember, get honest with yourself. Get honest with yourself.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
That's hard, and it's taken me it's been a journey.
Yeah.
And taken me a long time.
And especially those that are in that founder role, in that C-suite, it's an ego check, and it's difficult for a lot of people.
And I've seen both.
I've
seen the the ego side of it, and then I've seen senior leadership that is just so kind
Yeah.
that there's a reticence to make hard business decisions.
For sure.
For fear
Yeah, almost the
of
opposite.
disrupting things.
Yeah, it's
or,
almost complete opposite way, yeah.
Yeah, so both ends of the spectrum exist, and that sweet spot is in the middle. And that's, your brand and your culture are always evolving. It's not too late.
It's not too late to change.
It's not too late. It's not too late. And it just starts with awareness. And if anyone wants to go deeper, learn more, has questions,
come hit up Ari in the
apparently
LinkedIn
I'm
DMs.
all over LinkedIn.
Apparently.
So I've
That's the only
been
reason
told.
why I asked you to be on here.
But these are the conversations I want to have.
Yeah, for sure.
And
thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, I just want to bring that human connection and understanding and trust and authenticity into the workplace and into society.
Yeah.
Because
it's needed.
The taking the mask off piece.
Yeah. Metaphorically and literally.
We are one human.
Yep.
The human that goes to work is the same human that shows up on your podcast and the same human that goes home to their family.
Yep.
And
then people need to see and show more of it.
The buyer is asking for it.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And the community needs it.
100%.
So that's my mission. That's my purpose. That's my why.
I love it. Well, Ari, thank you so much for the time today. I think that's a good place to end. And I appreciate you just bringing your authentic self. I love it. And the energy you radiate is very palpable. So appreciate you and thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been just an honor and a pleasure. I am so grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, you bet. Not a problem.
Excited.
We're
so happy to be meeting you in person
Thank
through
you.
it because I love building connections.
Yeah, for sure. Where can people find you? Is LinkedIn the best place?
LinkedIn is the best place to find me. So if you search Ari Mason,
you'll find you.
And I got the little bubble, like the mental health bubble.
Cool.
I didn't even know if I could put that on there, and then I asked Nick Staggy, and I was like,
Nick would know. We like Nick too. Nick's good
guy. I'm going to be on Nick's podcast tomorrow.
Cool. Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be a lot more fun than this.
I know. I finally made it when I get an invite to Nick's podcast.
Yeah.
But good people.
Tell him hi
so
tomorrow.
It's Ari Mason.
He's a Kaysville guy too.
He's a what?
He's a Kaysville guy. He's from here.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, they live here.
It's small. I thought it was Small Lake City because I live in Salt Lake. It is just small state Utah.
Yes,
but yeah, all these good people doing really good things. So LinkedIn is the best place to find me. Search my name, Ari, A-R-I. Don't put any weird letters in there. And then there's a little bubble. And send me a message. I read them all.
Yeah.
It might take some time to dig out because I'm also creating a group for job seekers.
Yeah.
To be able to connect them with opportunities and resources in each other. I got a ton of outreach about that, and I have felt so guilty that I haven't been able to respond individually.
You're only one person, so hopefully people understand.
This is how you scale.
Yep. 100%.
So anyway, LinkedIn, come find me.
Sounds good.
I would love to be friends.
Thank you again, Ari. Appreciate it.
Thank you.